So it's just 2 months to go for the American presidential elections. Vice President Kamala Harris is leading former Trump by a wide margin amongst women and the Hispanic voters. Now, since Biden quit the presidential race, Harris has managed to garner some ground against Donald Trump in the national polls, and that too in some pretty critical swing states. And our next poll gets more details.
A new Reuters Ipsos poll showed that Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris has widened her lead over her Republican rival, Donald Trump. The poll, published on Thursday, showed Harris with 45% support among registered voters, while Trump had 41%.
Trump's problem today is that he's behind and he's running out of time.
Dr. Hank Scheinkoff, political consultant at Scheinkoff Communications, says women voters are helping to widen Harris's lead.
Part of what's moving the women's vote certainly is reproductive rights issues across the country. The Supreme Court's ruling outlawing Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs decision, motivating voters to turn out to vote for someone who, frankly, supports what they think is most important.
Reuters recently spoke to voters in Phoenix, Arizona, including Claudia Lohman, an immigrant who arrived in the U.S. at the age of 7. She said she is most concerned about reproductive rights.
For me, it's Roe versus Wade. That is the thing that really upsets me the most. I've got nieces who are very, very young, and the fact that they are growing up with less rights than I did, is just tremendously terrible. And that is the one driving force that I've got in this election season for me.
The new Reuters Ipsos poll showed Trump led among white voters and men, both by similar margins as in July.
American men are paranoid and concerned about the changing economic system, about the jobs that they can't fill, that they don't know how to fill. Technology is a threat. And frankly, the fact that the United States, for the first time in its history, more than 50% of the people who live here cannot identify as Europeans going back in their family history.
Since President Joe Biden ended his candidacy, Harris has gained ground against Trump. But in the 7 states where the 2020 election was closest, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, Michigan, and Nevada, Trump had a 45 to 43% lead over Harris in the latest poll.
And she's got to somehow convince middle-class Americans, whether they're black, white, or Latino, or Asian for that matter, that she has their best interests at heart long term.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening at this moment in American politics, we're being joined by Professor John Ports, who's a professor of political science at the Northeastern University in Boston, United States, and is joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor Ports, this is a pretty fascinating interview that Kamala Harris is, in fact, given. This is the first sit-down interview that she's done since becoming the Democrat candidate, and she's so far at least not interacted with the media in an open press conference. Is there a certain strategy that Kamala Harris perhaps has been advised about, that the less she talks to the media, the better are her chances of winning? What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, perhaps that's a strategy. I'm not sure that's a good one. I think most people have pushed to say that she should be doing more interviews. It's a little bit unusual for someone to go as long as she has without doing kind of more informal interviews. But, this has been a very unusual process. And so I think that she was using her initial time to kind of gather forces, to build up her campaign, to make sure she understood the positions that she wanted to take.
And also considering that, the position that she is in, where she seems to be gaining ground on Donald Trump's campaign, do you think this, if it is a strategy, we do not know if it is, but this reluctance to interact with the media, giving very few sit-down interviews and so far no press conferences, do you think this is going to affect her chances in November?
Well, I think at this point it's been okay, but I think, as I say, I think that moving forward, she will have to be more specific on some of the policy issues that she wants to advocate for, and particularly when it gets to the debate in about 10 days or so. That will certainly have lots of questions about specifics, policy areas, and so she will have to be more focused on those issues at that point.
Specifics and policy issues, but it's also a question of personality and how the American electorate will view her. The performance that she put out in this sit-down interview, Donald Trump described it as recorded and scripted. So when she goes in, with that no-holds-barred debate with Donald Trump, one-on-one with him, do you think she'll be able to survive?
Oh, I think so. I mean, it's true. It was. I mean, Donald Trump talked about it scripted. I mean, it was. I wouldn't say it was scripted. I mean, it was. She was sitting at a table across from the interviewer, but I think she did as well as people would have expected in that environment. I think she did fine. It will be more challenging on a debate stage because there'll be, depending on the rules that they decide on, which I don't think they've quite decided. In particular, will it be an open mic or will they turn the mic off when someone's not supposed to speak? That will change the character of that debate, I think, potentially rather significantly.
That's going to be a debate that will be one to watch out for. And my final question to Professor is, in your opinion, did Kamala Harris touch upon most of the policy issues that the American people would want to hear her talk about, or do you think there is some issue that she still missed out?
I think she touched on some of the key ones, but very briefly. It was not a very long interview. And it's interesting, as I think about it, the abortion issue, I don't think came up because I think in part because everybody knows what her position is there. I think there was more of a push on economics, also the border immigration issues, which are really in the forefront of people's minds.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Potts, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Okay, my pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.